I thought that's what good friends did. Hung out together with their significant others and have fun, not screw around with your wife. It all started about 2 years ago when I came home from work one day, walked in the house, and saw my wife on her phone smiling. But when she saw me walk in, she got off the phone. I didn't think anything of it. I just thought she was done with her conversation. As the night goes on, we have dinner, chat for a bit, watch a movie, and turn in the middle of the night. While laying in bed, I noticed my wife was on her phone, and I asked her, "Why are you on your phone this late at night?" Her response was, "A coworker was working on a project and needed to ask me something." I said, "This late at night?" She said, "Yes, I am just answering a question." At that moment, I just turned back over and went asleep. I have been married to this woman for 16 years. I didn't have any reason to not believe her. The next day, I didn't bring it up, but it was kind of odd, I thought, because it's never happened before. And she has been working for the same company for 10 years, and no coworker has ever texted her that late at night. After work, we have our normal routine. While we were lying in bed watching TV together, the phone buzzed again at 11:30 p.m. I didn't say anything. My wife made a comment like, "Gosh, what does she want now?" When I heard that, I thought it must be her coworker again. But I'm starting to think something else is going on. It has been about a month now, and her coworker is texting all the time, even on weekends at odd hours. And I have to say, it's getting very suspicious. But I can't come across as the jealous and controlling husband who doesn't trust his wife. So, I don't question her about it. So, one day after work, my wife sends me a text saying she is going to hang out with a few coworkers and do happy hour after work. I have no problem with that. It's all innocent. She gets home about 12:30 a.m., which is respectable because she has to get up at 8 a.m. to get ready for work and be there by 10. I leave before she does. So, I kiss her goodbye and tell her to have a good day. I work in telecommunications, and I also work with my best friend. We have been friends since we were kids. When I ran into him, we work in the same building. He says he is tired because he stayed out late. I told him, that's what you get. He just chuckles and walks away. After work, I get home, and my wife is already at home. I asked her was everything okay since she normally gets home after I do. She said she came home early because she had a headache. I then asked her how she is feeling. She said the headache is wearing off because she took some Tylenol. Later that night, that coworker sends my wife more text messages. Now I am really starting to get suspicious. The next morning, I flat out asked my wife, is there anything going on that I should know about? My wife looked at me and asked, what are you talking about? You know what I'm talking about. You keep getting these text messages this late at night, and it's never happened in the last 10 years. And all of a sudden you are getting nightly text messages. What is going on? I said. She yells and says there is nothing going on. At that moment, I picked up my bag and left. Didn't even kiss her or anything, because I know she is lying because a decade has gone by, and this has never happened before. I started to think of everything I knew about my wife and what was going on and if there had been anything suspicious before this. While I am at work, I get a text from my wife saying after work she won't be coming home. She is going to stay at a friend's house because she feels like we are drifting apart. I thought to myself, what the hell is she talking about? So, I didn't even question it. My response was, okay, that's all I said. After work, I am perplexed as to why she is getting late night text messages, and now she doesn't want to come home. Something is definitely going on. Well, as the night goes on, I am surprised I didn't get a text from my wife. So, I go off to sleep at about 1:07 a.m. in the morning. I hear someone in the house. I immediately get out of bed, turn on the light. By the time I get to the light and turn it on, I notice my wife is walking toward the bedroom, but she is messed up. Her hair is in shambles. She has scratches all over her face. Her blouse is torn. I look at her and say, what the hell happened to you? She looks at me with tears in her eyes and says, you will find out soon enough. I thought to myself, what the hell? Then suddenly, my phone rings. I go to pick it up and it's my best friend's wife. She begins to tell me that she came home and caught my wife and my best friend having sex. I could not believe what I was hearing. She said, I am sorry to be the one to tell you, but I came home unexpectedly and caught them in our bed. As I am hearing this, I look back at my wife and say, how could you? She is just standing there with tears in her eyes. She says, I am sorry. I got off the phone and started packing some things. I didn't want to be near her. She asked where I was going. I told her, away from you. I told her, don't come near me. You were lying to me all along. I call my brother at about 2 a.m. and he asks, is everything okay? I said, no. I told him my wife was having sex with my best friend. He says, no way. You were kidding. I said, nope. His wife called me and told me she caught them in their bed. He says, holy moly. He then says, you can come stay as long as you need. After settling in with my brother for the night, I get to work the next day. I run into my ex-best friend. I go up to him and hit him. Everybody that's around breaks us up. And my boss comes out of his office and says, what in the world is going on? I tell my boss, this jerk was having sex with my wife. My boss eyes got so big. I didn't know there's so much white in someone's eyeball. He looks at me and says, go home. He says he will call me later. After all that, I go back to my brother's. He was surprised to see me. He said, why are you back so early? I told him, I hit my best friend and my boss sent me home. My brother says, he can fire you for that. I told him I know, but I don't care. He was supposed to be my friend. After about an hour, my boss calls me and tells me he won't fire me. He made some phone calls, and he is transferring me to another location about 20 minutes away. I thanked him for not firing me. But before he got off the phone, he told me to get my emotions in check and handle this the right way. After talking to my boss, I am sitting on my brother's couch, and there is a knock on his door. My brother answers the door, opens it up wide enough for me to see that it's my wife. I asked her, what does she want? My brother lets her in. She walks directly in front of me, gets on her knees, and begs me to come home and not to leave her. I told her, I can't answer that right now. What I am feeling right now is to divorce you. And that's where my mind is at the moment. At that moment, she said she would do counseling, anything. I said to her, that won't help me. Maybe it will for you. But, at the moment, my mindset is not counseling. You cheated on me with my best friend. I lost 2 people in my life from a phone call. I told her, the best thing you can do is go home. She continues to beg and plead. I told her, my mind is not going to change in a day. And, it probably won't. She gets up crying and walks out the door. I told my brother that I just can't forgive her at the moment. He looks at me and tells me not to make any rash decisions. The week goes by and I decide to call a few lawyers to see what I am looking at for divorce. I tell the lawyer that I am just looking to get out of the marriage without too many bruises. He asks me, do we have any assets? I tell him, we just have the house and a couple of cars that are paid for. He then asks, who is the breadwinner? I tell him that I make a little more than her, about 5,000 more per year than her. He also asks, why am I divorcing her? I was honest with him. I told him that my wife was cheating with my best friend and his wife caught them. He says, I am really sorry to hear that. He then tells me in Virginia, we have to be separated for at least a year first, before we can file for an uncontested divorce in 6 months if you have no children. So, after that conversation, I thanked him and got off the phone. I want to thank everyone who read this far. I am really leaning towards divorce.